Hello! So for this video, I'm going to be talking about the three categories of rocks: igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic. I'm also going to be talking about what makes them all different to each category and the factors that put them in each category. Okay, so the first category that I'm going to be talking about is igneous rocks. And igneous rocks are made when molten material inside the earth and outside the earth cools and forms and becomes a solid. So when that molten material is inside of the earth, it's called magma. And then when it erupts through a volcano, perhaps, then it becomes lava. So there are two main types of igneous rock, and they are intrusive and extrusive. And intrusive kind of goes with off of what it sounds like. It's inside the earth. They form underground slowly over time. And the crystals in those rocks have a lot more time to grow and become larger and more visible to the naked eye than their counterpart, extrusive rocks. So this is an example of a intrusive igneous rock, and this is granite. And as you can see, it's got all of these visible crystals that have formed and just a larger grain size, you'll see, and that's part of intrusive rocks. So the big crystals, they've just had a lot of time to form, and that is intrusive. So extrusive rocks form on the Earth's surface while they're still molten, so they cool very quickly. Like once the lava comes up and it's on the Earth's surface, it starts cooling off a lot quicker than it would when it's under the Earth. So those crystals, when they're cooling so quickly, they don't have as much time as the intrusive rocks do to form these big, distinctive crystals. So their grain size is a lot smaller, and the crystals are like, you have to look through a magnifying glass to be able to see them. So this is basalt, and this is an example of an extrusive igneous rock. And so as you can see, the grain size is way smaller. You can sort of see them, but barely. They're very small. And that is indicative of extrusive igneous rock. So there are two ways to identify igneous rocks by examining their texture and their composition. So in this case, texture refers to the size of the grains within the rock. So for example, these, you can see the size of the different grains, this one as opposed to this one, where they're a lot smaller, and this one's a lot bigger. And then, so there are three different types of texture that you're looking for, and they are phaneritic, which is very coarse grained. They're bigger grains and you can see them with the naked eye, again. Aphanitic are the really fine grained rocks that have the very small grains within them. And then porphyritic, and that one is a mix of both. So it might have a base of just a bunch of small grains with some more coarse grained pieces throughout, basically. And knowing the texture helps determine the history of the rock, how it formed and where it formed and everything like that. So the second way of identifying is composition. And that's talking about the chemical and mineral makeup of whatever rock you're looking at. There's four groups of chemical. It's felsic, and felsic rocks are lighter and they have more silica content. Intermediate, they have a mix of light and dark, and a medium silica content. And this is an example, the same rock, granite, an example of a intermediate rock. So you can see it's got the light and dark within it. Mafic, which is darker colored rocks and has a lower silica content, and ultramafic, which it's very dark, it has the absolute lowest silica content within it. And knowing composition helps in figuring out which layer of the earth the rock formed within. Okay, so now I'm going to be talking about sedimentary rocks. and they are made up of pieces of sediment and bedrock. That's why they're called sedimentary rocks. There's two types, clastic and non-clastic. And clastic rocks form from the compaction of sediment and pieces of other rocks that have gone through a process called weathering, which is when rocks are broken down by either chemical means or mechanical, like physical means. So clastic rocks are identified by grain shape, grain size, and the sorting of the grains, so how they're placed essentially throughout the rocks. These factors tell you where the rock may have formed and all of the different factors that may have gone into its formation. So here's an example of a clastic sedimentary rock. This is sandstone. And as you can see, it has a small grain size, and it is, again, it kind of goes with its name, sandstone. So you can see it's made up of sediment, and the sediment is sand. And you can tell, because when you look at it with your magnifying glass, you can tell that it's made up of all these little sediments of sand. And it is a clastic sedimentary rock. Non-clastic rocks form from precipitated solutions in water. So they're identifiable by, they have a really small grain size. Their luster, you can look for interactions with hydrochloric acid, that's a giveaway that it's non-clastic. And also the potential presence of fossils within them is another giveaway that it's non-clastic. So I have this example. This is fossiliferous limestone. And you can see it has within it little fossilized shells. Okay, and the last category for rocks is metamorphic rocks. Metamorphic rocks are rocks whose physical and compositional appearance, essentially, has been changed by extreme conditions, extreme heat, confining pressure, directed stress, chemically reactive fluids. All of those things change the rock from one thing to a different thing. So it has a different physical appearance or chemical makeup that turns it into a metamorphic rock. Metamorphic rocks have two types of texture, and it's foliated and non-foliated. Foliated metamorphic rocks are made up of multiple layers of flat, stacked minerals, all kind of going in the same direction. They also have alternating bands of light minerals and dark minerals, and that's called gneissic banding within the rock. So for an example, I have gneiss, and you can see that it's foliated because it has these very distinctive stacked layers that it is made up of. It also has the light and dark banding throughout. So that's an example of a foliated metamorphic rock. Non-foliated metamorphic rocks are only made up of one mineral, and they don't have that kind of consistent layering in one direction like the foliated rocks do. This is an example. This is marble. And they're basically just kind of a mishmash of minerals. It's all one mineral, but there's no, distinct layering throughout. You can't really see anything stacked on top of each other. It's just a whole solid rock here. So that is an example of non-foliated. All right, so those are the three categories of rocks and kind of the factors that go into each different type, and some examples of maybe how you can differentiate them when looking at all the many different types of rocks that there are. All right, thanks. Bye.